Wait! If that was you on the phone and you on the bus, then who was flickering the lights? Nosferatu!
The painting you see in front of you, titled "Then Who Was Flickering the Lights," is one of the most breathtaking and layered pieces of modern art that I have ever seen. It is, by all accounts, a timeless masterpiece of visual storytelling, and I'm going to tell you why. But first, a bit of background. This piece was created by Wafalo, a traditional artist who is a master at his craft, specializing in taking classic romantic and baroque paintings and recreating them with modern pop culture icons, bridging the gap between over 300 years of artistic history. Responsible for stunning works, such as Shrek in the Pond and, of course, Mike with the Pearl Earring. They are an incredibly talented individual, and I encourage all of you to check out his online shop. I'm going to leave a link for it in the description below. His work is legitimately some of the best that I've ever seen. But what makes this specific painting so special? If any of you are fans of horror, such as myself, then you're familiar with Nosferatu. Having first appeared in a 1922 silent film titled after his name, Nosferatu: A Symphony of Horror, Count Orlok is an icon in the world of cinema, being the first vampire to have ever appeared on the big screen. In 2024, the film was resurrected by the esteemed Robert Eggers, one of my personal favorite directors, who reintroduced Count Orlok into the mainstream with his own adaptation, simply titled Nosferatu. However, there is one other famous franchise in which the Count has made an appearance. In SpongeBob SquarePants' critically acclaimed episode Graveyard Shift, Orlok is shown within the last few seconds of the episode's runtime, flickering the lights in the Krusty Krab. What was seen as a pretty random, innocuous gag that seemingly no child would understand ended up introducing an entire generation of viewers to the classic vampire. Eggers even thanked this episode specifically for the exposure that it gave the Count. That final scene would lead us to today. As you can probably tell, the light that Count Orlok was flickering in the episode is what the 2024 rendition of the character is reaching for in this painting, looming over the seemingly asleep SpongeBob as Squidward and Richard look in from a curtain behind them. This entire composite is not only referencing the final scene in 2024's Nosferatu, but is based on Henry Fuseli's The Nightmare, a romanticism painting from 1781 which depicts a woman dressed in white with an incubus laying on her chest, and a black mare peeking in from a curtain. Count Orlok, much like the original painting from the Swedish artist, is the physical manifestation of a nightmare. You see, vampires were not always young, attractive men capable of witty banter and being bisexual. They were creatures of the night, devils who lurked in the shadows, preying on the flesh and blood of the innocent. Vampires were to be feared, and Robert Eggers knew this better than anyone. 2024's Count Orlok is a return to form for these monsters, the embodiment of a walking, rotting plague that never creates but only destroys. Taking this idea and basing it on the original 1781 composite is nothing short of brilliant. But that's not all. If you've seen Nosferatu, then you'd know that in this painting, Squidward is being used as the stand-in for the husband in the film, Thomas, as he is behind Richard, mirroring the final scene of the movie, like I previously said. SpongeBob is obviously the stand-in for Ellen, Thomas's wife. You would also be aware that Thomas is one of the driving factors in why Nosferatu is plaguing their town in the movie, as he quite literally signed Ellen off to the vampire in one of the earlier scenes. This reflects the event of a graveyard shift, wherein Squidward spends the entire episode up until the end sewing together the story of how the Krusty Krab is haunted. In a way, he too is to blame for Count Orlok's appearance, even foreshadowing it with the famous line,
"The lights will flicker on and off. Next."
Dude, can I have some ketchup?
Oh, here you go.
Now, if you'll glance towards the lower left corner of the painting, you will see a jar filled with lilacs. Though this may just seem random at first, these flowers are often used to represent youth and innocence, which SpongeBob is the very embodiment of. It is his entire character. In the same breath, however, these flowers can also be used to symbolize death and mourning, which, as we've already established, is Count Orlok's entire being. We see these flowers used often in the film, such as when Thomas brings a bouquet of them to Ellen early on. At some point, Count Orlok even whispered the word lilac to himself after smelling Thomas's pendant, which carries the scent of his wife, whom Nosferatu lusts for the entire film. The painting even makes use of the golden ratio, or the divine proportion, a logistic tool often used in photography and art art to create scenes that are visually appealing, even on a subconscious level. And finally, remember earlier when I mentioned that the original Nightmare painting is a product of Romanticism? Artworks that fall under this umbrella are often used to represent scenes of emotion, whether positive or negative. It places importance on concepts such as the inevitability of nature and the products of imagination. Do those words remind you of anybody in particular? Then Who Was Flickering the Lights is unironically and without a shred of sarcasm a gorgeously layered piece of art that stands among one of the best that I've seen in a day and age where modern art generally blows. Am I looking too much into it? Perchance. But what is life if not something to look into, something to ponder or explore? After all, isn't that the very definition of what constitutes art? Nah, I'm probably just looking too much into it. The painting goes hard.